Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Bandsaw Life. I'm Alex Snodgrass. This is my buddy Stone from Wood and Stoane. And today we want to go through this 18-inch jet. It's a brand new saw, 18-inch with a 16-inch cut capacity. It's got a foot brake, which is kind of rare for a jet. Jets usually don't have the foot brake. This one does. I've got the optional light on here, and of course, quick release for raising or tightening and loosening your blade. This one's got the 3-horse motor on it. I put casters on the bottom of this. They do sell a base for it, which is probably a little more stable than what I've done with it. I prefer casters for a smaller footprint, but there is always that possibility you could tip it over if you push too hard or something like that. So always safety first. But what we want to do is I'm going to take the table off. I'm going to show you how to tune this saw up, and then we're going to resaw a 16-inch piece of maple to show what this bad boy will really do. Hope y'all stick with us.
Get after it.
All right. All right, now I've got the table off. You can see it's just 4 bolts to take that table off, but remember when you put the table on this particular unit, it needs to be angled at the 45. Otherwise, it's difficult to get the screws in because this spring helps assist lift, angle, and flatten that table. Now, we'll just open everything up here. And this guard is definitely something you want to keep in place. I'm going to take it off so that it's easier for y'all to see how to adjust this. It's got 2 number 5 Allen screws here on the side. So we'll just take those out. And then the guides don't get much easier. This is a simple setup. Basically loosen this up, and when you loosen this, it is a cam that adjusts your guides. And you loosen this up, it adjusts that guide. With the back, it's just loosen it and it slides front to back. So we'll set this into place. Same thing with the top, basically cams and the back screw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the blade in place and then adjust those guides to the blade. The blade that I'm going to use today, my favorite 5/8" Greenwood by Carter Products, and we're going to try to resaw a 16-inch piece of hard maple to show you what this blade and of course this awesome saw will do. Now we're ready to install the blade here. The first thing that I want to do is de-adjust all the guides. So I'm going to open up every guide. I'm going to back away my thrust bearings and open up those side guides. So now everything's open, backed away. We'll install our blade. We've got our 5/8" Greenwood blade. This is a 150-inch blade for this saw. Now, a lot of saws have these days, and a lot of people look at it and go, why did it must be for shipping. Well, actually those little wood pieces are there so it deflects the dust out the top chute. It does have one in the bottom, so it does pull that residual that gets down in the bottom. But this is kind of a dust deflector. So we'll take that out, set our blade into place. Now this does have the quick release, so I'm going to raise that up to lower that top wheel. We'll set that blade into place. Just get it to where it's somewhat centered. And then we'll put just a little bit of tension on that. Now, I'm going to rotate that and see where that blade tracks. We can see that the blade tracks back a good bit. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thrust adjustment here come around this side, break that loose. We'll back that off just a little bit, and we're trying to track this so that the deepest part of the gullet is right there in the center of the wheel at the top. Remember, it's designed to run that way. The deepest part of the gullet, and this, the nice thing about this new jet, the wider wheels really allow for you to get a larger blade on there if you wanted to. But even on my 24-inch Powermatic, I don't run anything over a 5/8-inch Greenwood blade. I get good production out of it. Just no need to go much larger. So, I've got it to where it's tracking right there in the center. Then I'm going to lock that thrust adjustment into place. Then before you do any adjusting on this, make sure that you lock that top post, because it can move or cant that piece just a little bit if it's not solid. So we've got that solid. We've got our guides backed away. So the first thing I want to do is adjust this bottom guide. All right, so I want to adjust these lower guides. We'll just stick that dust deflector back into place to get it out of the way. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to adjust these side guides front to back so that the front edge is just behind the deepest part of the gullet. Remember, your tooth set begins at the deepest part of the gullet. So if you bring those side guides into the gullet, you're going to flatten those teeth out. So I've got it set up to where the front edge is just behind the deepest part of the gullet on the bottom. We'll do the exact same thing here at the top. Now we've got the upper and lower set so that the front edge of those bearings is just behind the deepest part of the gullet. Now next, I want to make sure that my thrust bearing is as close as possible without it actually touching the blade until we begin to cut. So I'm going to bring that up right to the back edge of that blade. And then when I rotate the wheel, if that bearing's turning, then we're just a little bit too close. So we'll back that off just a smidge. And now we've got it very close, but you can see just how little I have to go back. Let me just adjust that just a smidge more. You can see all I have to do is put like fingernail pressure to make that bearing turn. But when I turn the wheel, the bearing doesn't turn. So we're as close as possible without it touching. Now, since we're down here, we'll go ahead and adjust our side guides. So I'm just going to rotate that in so that it's as close as possible without touching. So all I have to do is bring that in, back it away. Now, you can see both bearings are turning, and when that happens, you're crushing the blade. So you definitely don't want it that close. So we'll back that away just a little bit more. And now you can see we've got just a little bit of movement, and we're good to go on that lower one. Now we've reinstalled the table. I've put the bolts in, but I've left them loose on purpose. The reason being is we need to adjust this table to the blade, especially the first time when you're putting this together. I want to adjust the table so that the blade is right in the middle of that insert. See, sometimes you get a saw and you think, well, maybe it wasn't put together properly. Well, it's just a matter of adjusting the table so that that blade is perfectly centered. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that the table is square to the blade, because you want to be able to use this miter slot, and the only way to do that is to square it up to the blade. So I'm going to use the good old Carter Fasts. Now, these are super simple to use. They basically have a magnet with a groove. All right, so we'll take our Fasts. We want those teeth right in that groove so that basically you're square to the body of the blade, not the offset of the teeth. Then we'll take a second one, and I'm going to put that on the back, and I can see that I'm just shy of that 3/4. So basically 11/16 off that one. And then we'll do the same thing on the front. And you can see I'm right at 3/4 of an inch there. So we're not off by a whole lot. Let's skew that out just a little bit. And now we're right there at that 11/16 on the back. We're also right there at that 11/16. So now the miter slot is square to the body of the blade. The other thing you want to make sure is once you've done that, you can see that our blade is not in the center of that insert. So you may have to do this a couple of times just to get it square. So we're going to put that back in the middle one more time. Couldn't do that again if I tried. Absolutely perfect. And we're right in the middle of the insert. So now I can tighten the table where it's at. We know we're square and we're centered in the middle of our insert. All right, now the last thing we have to do before we resaw this 16-inch piece of maple is we want to install our fence, and we want to make sure that the fence is square to the body of the blade. Now, we've adjusted the table so we know that's square, and we could work off that miter slot, but the problem that we run into there is if you get the blade back or forward just a little bit, it can change the angle of the blade. The best way to do this is with a fast. Put the teeth right in that groove, put it right on that blade, and then we can take a second one and measure over front and back to make sure we're squared. This thing couldn't be more accurate. It is set up and ready to go. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this for a 1/2 inch. And then, I know a lot of y'all see me doing resawing and think, well, he's done it. He knows how to do it. Well, today, I'm going to have my buddy Stone do this resawing, and he's going to do a 16-inch piece. We have not cut a thing on this saw, so we're hoping that everything is set up accurate, but we're going to find out. All right, now we've got this thing set up so that basically we've got a feather board here so that really just kind of helps keep it against that fence there, because this is a pretty tall piece to try to keep perfectly square. Stone has never actually resawn something this big before.
About 12 inches.
Okay, so this should be interesting, again, if we've set it up the right way. Go ahead, my friend. I don't think you could get much better than that. Right out of the box, set up, dead perfect, almost dropped it. But 16 inches of hard maple, it doesn't get much better when it comes to saws. Jet and Powermatic are the absolute best.
And
harder blades, absolutely very difficult to do it without them. So, I hope you all have enjoyed this. If you have any questions, definitely ask them in the comment section, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Bandsaw Life content.